Welcome to the REI Rocks review. I got my real estate investing rocks hat on, and Angel has made it. How are you doing today, Angel?
I'm doing great. Yeah, running tight. Things are just barely
Exactly.
hitting together right now.
Right, exactly. And we got Jason coming into. I see that his camera's having some issues. I'm not sure. I'll add him to the stream anyway, and then we can he can at least comment from the peanut gallery. But so this is the REI Rocks review. What are we doing here, Angel?
When we're in this, we look at previous sessions from previous summits. We've got, like over 300 hours of content from previous summits, and we're going to break things down because sometimes when you're in a session, you don't always know, what are the things I should really be focusing on because you're trying to focus on all of it, like drinking from a fire hose. And what we're doing in the REI Rocks review is we're going through and we're picking out the things that we feel are truly important, not that that's not all important, but really the biggies that may help you digest it a little bit easier because it'll be in more bite-sized pieces. So that's kind of my goal with what we're doing.
I love that. So the really actionable pieces, the parts that are maybe counterintuitive, and I love this format because we're able to keep it timely no matter what. So even if we're reviewing something from 2 years ago, it's actually kind of uncanny to see how accurate the predictions have been, because that's what people are insisting on. So it's funny because everybody wants to make a lot of mystery out of this, and there's definitely places you can go wrong, and places you can make the right choice and just knock it out of the park. But that's what's really exciting to me is how we pause it whenever something, if they're talking about it's like, well, we don't know what's going on with this pandemic, and now it's just like, just I don't even want to hear the word, right?
Well, it's yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I get that too.
Right. So, but today's session, the one that we were looking at, it revolves around the why, and I think that's the biggest thing that is overlooked when you're coming as a beginner into becoming a real estate investor, especially if you're going to be doing the syndication yourself. It's if you don't have a real reason to be doing this day in and day out, then it's going to become a lot more difficult. And but if you're passionate about it, then you just can't wait to get out of bed in the morning, right? So Angel, I don't know if you want to talk about your why or if you want to talk about the importance of establishing one. But like that's why I wanted to do this today is because I really wanted to get our why out there so that people know who they're working with when they choose Lauren Capital.
No, absolutely. And so RY is pretty big. Our son has profound special needs. He has a rare genetic disorder, and his medical needs are pretty costly. And I know that there will be a point in time when Jason and I are no longer here. And if Anson outlives us, we want to make sure that his sisters, they don't have to worry about anything but loving him because all of his medical costs will already be taken care of in a special needs trust. So that's really our primary why. There's some secondaries in there. We'd like to start a foundation for families affected by rare diseases. We'd like to do some different things with that, with like an endowment. And I mean, there's a lot of things that stem out of it, but that main primary why is just making sure that our daughters don't have to worry about how they're going to help their brother.
Exactly. It's a huge thing, and it's always it's a tough one when it comes to it's a tough one when it comes to deciding like where are we actually going to put all our chips, where are our priorities going to be. And I know with your multifamily property there in Wichita Falls, it's really important to outperform and make the people you're working with really happy with what you're doing. I believe it's that has to be taken care of first, and I think you've got that really well understood. So it's not going to be like an FTX thing where people are trying to, do these big projects or, like do philanthropy when actually that's investor money that's doing it. Well, the only way that we're going to be able to really knock this out of the park is if the fundamentals of business are, really, really great. That's the thing. That's the only caveat that I wanted to add. But there's so many different whys out there to choose from, and today's session, it's going to be a doctor who's helping more people see, and that's such a huge thing to focus on. Do you want to give a little bit of an intro on this session?
I can. So Dr. Nancy is actually, she's an ophthalmologist, and she wants to eliminate curable blindness because not all blindness is unavoidable. And so she is really driven with this why of, I want to help people not have to deal with this because sight is such an important thing. And one of the examples she talks about is like a simple cataract surgery. And I think about like my great grandmother had a cataract surgery when she was like 70, and she recovered from it and she could see. And I remember seeing her, the cloudiness in her eyes. That's a preventable blindness. And I think that we sometimes in the US or in other developed countries, we forget that there are people out there that don't have access to even those kinds of simple surgeries. And so that is her driving why. And I feel it when I talk to her. I feel how strong she is and how strong that why is for her.
And if anybody who's capable has struggled to get by in life, you have to understand it's like people with these preventable blindnesses, they have to make a living too. And how exactly are people supposed to do that if they can't see very well? It's such a profound thing that we all take for granted. But here is Dr. Nancy. Let's rock and roll. We're going to be playing this at 1.5 playback speed right here. Okay, so if it seems a little bit fast, that's why. But keep an eye on the captions because that's how you're going to be able to keep up. And this is such a fantastic way to consume information and retain it, especially. I tend to watch at 2 times speed, so that means you can watch it twice in the same amount of time, or at least the parts that you're going to be checking out. They become doubly as important. So let's check it out.
So much for being here. Again, these are my favorite 6 days of the year. I get to talk with and meet amazing people in the space that have amazing stories and amazing desires and just a crazy, amazing new outlook. Almost everybody has this new outlook on how to achieve the dreams and aspirations they have in their lives. And it is really, really amazing. And so I'm going to kind of introduce you to my friend, Dr. Nancy over here. I'm not going to say her last name because I know I'm going to say it wrong. And so I'm going to let you say it. And if you just give us a little quick intro on you, maybe some background info, and then we can go.
Yeah, my last name is pronounced Wynn. So hi, everyone. My name is Nancy Wynn. And just briefly about me, I carry several roles. First and foremost, I'm a wife and a mom to 2 young daughters who bring so much joy to my life. The second hat I wear is that I am an eye surgeon and an eye physician. So I get the privilege of just helping people with their eyesight and vision. And that's one of my passion projects to end preventable blindness around the world. And then the third hat that I wear, and which is why we're all here, is I'm also a real estate investor as well.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that we were talking about before we hit record on this is just some of the things that we want to discuss a little bit further right now. And we kind of laughed about it because we're not going to go all, all feminist on you. But I think that there's some realities here that need to be at least talked about. So it's been fairly recent that women have even been able to like take out loans on properties. And Nancy, you actually looked at the dates. I thought it was in the 60s, but you said it was in like more recent than that, right?
Yeah, this is what I found really interesting. I was just researching like, hey, how come there is this gap in women and real estate and investing in general? So I was just kind of doing some research. And right now, the right for women to own and manage property is equal to that of men. But the full financial autonomy wasn't achieved until the late 20th century. So it actually wasn't until mid 1970s that a woman could even access a full line of credit without having a man or her husband sign on a loan. And this was 1974, which is fairly recent.
No, that is. And I think that when we look at the landscape of the space, and we look at representation within it, it's not a capability thing. It was an access thing. We were late to the game. We're going to play ball as well as anybody else at this point, but it's hard to have a really great representation when you came so late to the game. So
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I
let's put
agree
it out
with
there.
that. Yeah, no, yeah, it's super cool just to think about that. It's not that long ago that women really had that.
Yeah, so this is something that I think about a lot, like a lot, and I love your spin on a lot of these things. You know, it's pretty clear for me that oh, here we go, we got all sorts of, speaking of women rock stars here. We got Dr. Erin Hudson saying, "What's up, rock stars? Great to see you. Thanks for being here." The expertise we got a bunch of comments here. We got a lot to do here. So the expertise is crazy deep from the panelists. Oh, epic series. All right, he's too kind, isn't he? And Angel's saying hi and hi, and Dylan is saying, keep me entertained while I make breakfast. Okay, so that's our job right now, is be entertaining. Tell us our whys. There you go. Oh, that's funny. But so yeah, so she's an eye surgeon, right? There you go. So she's an eye surgeon. But yeah, as far right, so as far as the men and women side of things, you know, this is something that's very important to me, is getting this part of society right and making sure that we name it appropriately as far as what's going on. And I think what the shift that's going on, it's actually just changing where women's attention is pointed more than anything else. So previously it was pointed at one set of things, and now it's shifting to include all of that. And so there's a lot of, I think, relationships that women have, so like daughters with their mothers and so on, where that has to be encouraged. And I think that there's a lot of self-selection going on, as far as like saying like, oh, you know, you don't have to worry about that. It's, well, if you're human, if you're alive right now, you have to get finances buttoned up. There's like the whole trope of, oh, you know, you can choose whatever career you want, and as long as, you know, you save a lot, then you'll be fine. I don't think that that's such a great guarantee. So do you have anything to say about that? Or
You know, I don't know. There is no guarantees, right? So it's just I don't know. We have to make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with the people that are going to help us get to where we want to get and make things happen. The get on the same page and make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with people that are looking for the same outcomes also.
and that's one thing that I've always liked about you and your body of content. You know, like we knew each other for like a couple years before I came on staff, and one thing you just don't do, and I like, this isn't the best way of putting it, but you don't exclude men. Okay, and the thing is, like, that is something that that does, you know, come out, and I know that, you know, men in general we're supposed to like kind of keep quiet about it, but you know, like when you see a sign on any door, it says you're not welcome. You know, it doesn't feel great, but you know, at the same time, I also know that there are tons of men who are just incapable of speaking with women in a way that's, you know, respectful, appropriate. You know, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's continue.
That full right to the full line of credit and all that, which is involved in owning real estate. And but I think women are very much as capable, right, to get into this game.
Yeah, no, and I think about like, and especially in countries that are still developing, and you look at the household, and you look at really what the drivers are for education in the household, and it's the females. The females are truly the drivers of education in developing countries. And so it makes sense to me that we could move from letting females have access to the space much more freely. And then I think we're really starting to see more impact investing that is really specific to making an impact and not to making money with the impact secondary.
Right, and I don't know how much of an international audience we're going to have, but what you just mentioned there reminded me of the book Three Cups of Tea. And it was about in Afghanistan, where they found that the best way to move the society forward was in girls' education, because girls were less likely to leave. So, being from a place like Canada, like my entire life we've been talking about brain drain, talent going to America where there's more money out there to be made. And then I lived in Taiwan for 15 years, and you have the exact same thing of Taiwanese people going to work in China. So really, that's I think that's a pretty huge thing there, as far as just getting in the right rooms, being in the right position to move ahead. And I don't know. I'm just really big on naming things properly so that they're discussed in a way that's productive. So.
No, and I just
That
the
makes
part, the
sense.
part about whether or not it's international, it's still it's more prevalent in other countries that the female really drives the education in the home. But even in your developed countries, I still think it's usually the female in the home that is making sure that the home is that the dishes are getting done, the laundry's getting done, the house is clean, everybody has clean clothes. And even though it may not be as important because we kind of just expect that we're entitled to an education, I still think that the
Mhm.
female or the person in the role of keeping the home straight is the person that's really pushing the educational needs.
Right, and so that gets into the topic of the primary caregiver, though, and that's something that I've had the good fortune to have experienced it. And it is absolutely brutal, and it doesn't matter, like what's in your pants. It is a brutal, brutal, brutal job to have, being the primary caregiver, and also the one who keeps track of the home, as you're saying. And like psychologically, there's so much going on that I think that the traditional male, who's never had to spend any meaningful amount of time and basically does not keep up much of any responsibilities, with the possible exception of like handyman work, as it's called, or maybe at least getting the professional, the plumber or whatever, to come. It's like it's you're gonna miss so much of the reality if you're putting your blinders on like that. And anybody who's the primary breadwinner really needs to be aware of that, I think. So.
Awesome.
I absolutely agree. Before, right, when we think about investing, we often think, hey, profits go in one little bucket, and then impact or purpose go in another. So you will make money by your job or your investments, and then you donate to a charity. But I think more and more those two are being combined together, where that philanthropy and the profits are going hand in hand. So people are using, right, more real estate or whatever they're investing in and making sure that's making a positive impact. So even if you think about like investing in real estate, apartments, for instance, like just by investing in the apartments itself, you're investing in the communities, the residents. These are homes and places where people celebrate birthdays, holidays, all that. So you make a huge impact, even if you're not like giving another chunk of money, right, to some cause. So yeah, I think no matter what you're investing in, you're bringing together money and meaning, because I think we all don't just seek to accumulate wealth just for the sake of it. We do so with a goal in mind, right? Whether it's a vision of how our money will help our lives, or family lives, or community, or the world at large. So yeah, I really think impact investing is inherent in what we do.
Can you
No,
pause it just
absolutely.
a
And
second?
then if you think about it, kind of,
Okay, I was talking to someone just this morning, and it was like mind blowing because it was what he and I were talking about is really a different approach to your investor relation piece. And it's about, what are your investors' goals? Do they want to be philanthropists? Do they want to provide for their family later on? Do they want to provide for their family now and create free time? Do they want to create a legacy? And really focusing on the impact they want to make. That way they get to have that next level experience where they get to have some of that self actualization, and where they're getting to really create and be a huge part of the future and have that impact that they might not have even thought about wanting. And when you help them see, this is what my why is, and you're going to help me get there, we just reached the next level on our relationship.
I totally agree. And yeah, of course, some people, they're going to deny categorization, and for that one, I'm thinking of Ethan Gao, and specifically, but of course he'll lay it out, right? It's like, okay, well, if it's a democracy, a democratic sort of situation, and people are out there buying my votes, whoever gives me $1 more, that's who Ethan's going to vote for every single time. Or he's going to pick the one that saves him $1, and so his loyalty is strictly
it goes
measured
further
in
than
dollars and
that,
cents.
because that may
Yeah.
be what he
Right.
says, but the reason behind
Right.
it is because he wants to take care of his family.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing too, which I'm gonna bug him one day. It's like, well, where is it again? Right? It's like eventually, that those $3.99 haircuts are going to have a time cost that's too high. One of these days, I swear. But anyway, I
Thank
should
you, Ethan,
I
for
should stop
being the
blabbing
part of
about
our
him.
conversation here.
Oh, right, exactly. A nice straw man. That's handy.
The way that people have always
Actually, but while I'm doing that though, the other thing that I haven't done yet, and we're at 20 minutes past the hour, is I
Oh.
haven't covered my face with any triangles in like a week. And so now I'm getting my fix by telling you what's going on today, which is we're reviewing the REI Rock Summit material, and you can access all of this stuff if you either scan this QR code, or if you go to this address right here, theacademypresents.com/REI Rocks Review, and then you can find out how to access all this stuff. You got anything more you want to say about that, or you want to get back to the video, Angel?
Let's get back to the video. This one's really good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, me too. Rock and roll.
done it. I mean, you can accumulate the cash flow and then use the cash flow to turn around and also impact, the world around us. So it's just really the whole idea is really neat. And I'm not saying it's women driven. Guys like to impact the world too. It's just, I feel like we're going to be able to see more of it because women are built a little different. And there's nothing wrong with that. They just are. So, but I'll kind of push off of that one. Nancy, I really also like this philanthropy and this drive that you have within yourself to basically cure blindness and cure, I guess, preventable blindness. And how are you combining all of those things together to really pursue that dream?
Yeah, it's super awesome. I went into medicine and I fell in love with ophthalmology. So as I mentioned in my intro, I'm an eye surgeon and an eye doctor. So not only do I get to help people, in our country, but how I originally got attracted to this field was I witnessed the miracle of cataract surgery for the first time on a completely blind patient abroad. And this patient was elderly and came in all hunched over, holding someone's hand to come in. And literally with a 10 minute cataract surgery, he walked out just smiley face and independent, standing upright. And that's when I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And as I was researching the issue further, I realized that 4 out of 5 people around the world are blind, but don't need to be, meaning that there is a very simple treatment or a cure for their blindness. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I've combined my profits from real estate to really supporting this cause to try to end preventable blindness around the world.
Wow, that is huge. That's really huge. Wow, that's amazing. And I think it's really neat.
It just reminded me, though, about how when I was in Taiwan teaching English, I kind of dissuade people from using the word abroad because it sounds like you're saying broad. Like I was talking to abroad at the bar or something like that. And it's just like, it doesn't land so well. But I don't know. That's my take anyway.
Neat the way that you've been able to use the apartment investing, the multifamily investing, and the syndications to be able to help you achieve that dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think real estate, right, in addition to providing for my family and myself and giving me a little bit more time, freedom, and flexibility, is also allow me to support causes like this that I'm so passionate about. And so I'm able to hopefully achieve this vision where there's a world where no one is unnecessarily blind. It's a huge goal, but I think step by step, as we're raising awareness for this issue and being able to support the funds and embrace the entrepreneurship and this novel, method that we're trying to do it in these countries, I just think that it is achievable. And there's just a huge human cost behind blindness. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I think real estate just offers so many benefits, but one of them is just being able to make an impact around the world, such as for causes such as these.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a few people I know of that actually they give a portion of their profit and they have it set aside. Maybe you heard of Whitney Sewell with his Life Bridge. He's got the adoptions, the funds that they set aside to help people that are adopting children or adopting into their families. We have well, I hope and dream. It's not there yet. We're not, it's not all over everything, but we want to eventually be able to send a portion to the Duke 15Q Alliance and create a foundation that supports families with rare diseases. And so those are, those are our goals.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to incorporate those into our business plan.
Yeah.
And so
And that's what I would challenge the audience too, is think of your why, or even your bigger why. It could be something as small as, for your family, for your community, for local charities, but something as broad and bold as what you're doing for rare diseases. But it really, if you have a why behind it, it just fuels your motivation even more and gets you up when things don't go as well, so that you can keep pushing. So yeah, I think having a cause behind what you're doing is so important.
No, and I think that having people rely on you, because I think about like my son, and while he doesn't have the mental capacity to really understand he relies on me, we just take care of him. I feel like there is a big need in society and in the world at large to help care for families that are dealing with rare diseases or dealing with blindness or dealing with these outliers that they need to be not so outlier. I don't even know how to say that. But there's got to be some kind of recognition and representation for people affected by.
Yeah, I think there's two ways of playing this, right? It means that you either have to have a system in place that makes it okay, like you can actually get by if you're in a family affected by this. But the other thing that has to be in place, and really it comes out, which is in passive income. In that side, there has to be, like, some people don't like the idea of establishment having a ton of passive income and basically not being working class. But there has to be a way for people like you and your family to, without government assistance, make all this stuff work. Like I think you have to have both to have a society that actually works. Do you have some remarks you want to make on that?
Well, I was thinking about something a little different. And that's really how important it is. I mean, we're doing this. I'm doing this. Dr. Nancy's doing this. Most of the people I know that are syndicating properties or doing real estate in some degree or another, we're doing it for our whys. And I'm telling you, I was so impacted by who I talked to this morning that all I can think of now is, how do I help other people realize their why? How do I help other people realize their whys and get closer and closer to them? And I don't know, I just can't get that out of my head. And then with us doing this today, it was like the universe was like slamming it on me that this is where I need to be going. This is what I need to be thinking about, is how do I help the people around me realize their whys, like capture their whys, embrace their whys, and move closer to where they want to be with that why.
I love that because that's all about mindset, right? And there's so much to it, because if you're, like, I think one of the biggest things that scares people and really comes up with the why, like for me, the why is intertwined with this part, is when I realized that if you're passionate about something, you'll never procrastinate. You'll be eager to actually go out and do it. And I think so many people, just because of the grind and because of, like how education, has pigeonholed us into whatever we're doing, we expect that we can't get more out of life than we already do, or we just feel like tired and just like we can't be as productive. And that's what I mean by mindset, is just, if you believe that you can't do it, you're probably right. But it just, the act of doing what you want to do, it quits that procrastination, it gets you passionate. And I think that's like really, like what you're describing when you help somebody realize their dreams, like that's some sort of mixture between like a genie in the lamp and Santa Claus, and that's why I'm all on board. I love that idea of giving people more meaning of their life, just because they have the freedom to choose, because you don't in a typical W-2. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, let's continue on.
These things so that they're more incorporated into who and what we are. Like, and I don't mean like us personally, but like as a whole. Because if we can pull in those outliers more, I believe that we as a society will want to care more for them and make sure that they're getting the things that they need. And I'm not saying, hey, we're going to take everybody's money through taxation and force you to care for these people. I'm just saying that, I mean, when you're 24/7 with a child with autism, you begin to see autism completely differently.
Yeah.
And you begin to see the need for care for people afflicted with it, or not even afflicted, that's a horrible word, but people who are dealing with the condition. And you begin to see the need for their care differently. And I would imagine that it would be the same way with the preventable blindness, or with famine, with childhood hunger, with all of these things, because we keep repetitively seeing them and hearing about them. They come to the forefront, and we're more apt to want to be a part of the programs that care for those.
So a lot of that's about being understood, I think, and that covers a lot of the problems in society. I think is just being understood. It's like there's a reason why people choose to be violent, and that's because their lives suck. And like things like that. And so does that, like, what do you think? Do you think that that's accurate? Does that follow from your experience that, like people with, say, autism, it's just they need to be understood, so that there's like a series of expectations there that just aren't there with people when that condition is absent?
There's such a wide array that I don't know that the understanding of one person with autism could really be that similar to how you understand someone else with autism. Because I think of my son, and I don't know how to understand him, because I don't know what he's thinking, because he can't tell me. And so I know I can tell when he gets frustrated, I see it, but I can't always figure out what's frustrating him. So I think that level of understanding is tougher in those situations. In situations like with preventable blindness, you can see it. And to be able to fix that's a different level of understanding. Because if you've ever seen any of those videos with babies that are getting glasses for the first time, and you see their little faces light up and the smiles come out because for the first time they're seeing, that's a whole nother level of understanding than you would have with other potential diseases. So I don't know, there's a really wide array, but I do feel like people want to know that they're heard. And I believe that there are people that want to be understood and to know that you are at least trying.
Okay, so like I don't know if this works as an example, but like one like for example with a in a subway or something like that. I mean, like a station, not a sandwich place. So you need to have your ticket in order to get admission. And so the person who's there in charge of getting tickets and letting people in, if they run into somebody who has profound autism, for example, that connection, the ticket taker wouldn't understand why the person's getting so adversarial. It's like, hey, like, no. It's like, you can't come in, you need the ticket, and you have like difficulties understanding there. So that's what I think is the understood element of what society needs. Is we need to know, it's like, okay, if we set up systems that are complex enough, then you have to, be ready for people who just aren't on board with the rest of society's rules, I guess, and just keep it simpler. Like, is that kind of the direction that you figure things can go in?
I mean, I think that would be really awesome. If we could move in a direction where people feel more heard, more understood, and they can see that people are in fact trying to make them a part of their environment.
There you go. And I'm sorry about your eggs, Dylan, but I digress.
And so it would be really, really neat to make sure that all of those things are represented and people are hearing about them. There's more, I don't even know, like cognition, like things happen around us and we don't even realize they're happening. But like
just awareness, right? Just awareness, right? Because like in my world, I'm surrounded by eyes all day and blindness and the different conditions. And in your world, because of your son, like you're so aware of these rare diseases, right? That can afflict families and how it affects them. And then for someone else, it might be hunger. For someone else, it might be something else. But just raising awareness so that people are, open their eyes to that there's a world larger than themselves and they can make a difference, even in some small way. And I think that's what we're trying to say, Angel, right? It's just like opening people's eyes to see that there are different problems and we have it so much better than a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I was
can help
actually
in some way. Yeah.
I was desperately searching for the word awareness. And I was like, why is this word not happening? But yeah, it is. It's just because people aren't aware. People don't, if it's not directly happening to them,
Mhm.
they don't really remember. Like after you started about cataracts, I'm like, oh, my great grandmother had cataracts. But that was when I was 12. And like, so we have these things that happen around us, but we don't think of them as being a worldwide or a larger problem if they're not around us like a lot, if they're not continually in our space, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, I would just say to the audience, like, what is something that you're really passionate about, you know? And then as you're thinking about investing in real estate, can you make an impact some way, right? Even if you're not donating money directly to a cause, if you think about investing in apartments like we're talking about, it's lovely to see the impact that you're having on the residents. Like even simple things like they put a playground, right? Making it better for the kids, or have after school.
I got something I want to pause for, which is I realize I haven't put any triangles over my face in like 20 minutes or something. And one of the things that I think real estate people and entrepreneurs are better at than other big swaths of society is we realize that people can provide value in many ways, whereas most people, they're stuck with, it's like, okay, well, if they're not going to pay me, then I can't find a way for them to be valuable. If they're not providing cash, then I can't do it. But there's a thing called sweat equity. And so one of the things that even if you're in that situation where you're not flush with cash or something like that, there are still ways that you can provide value if you can only just meet the right people. And the triangle I was talking about is for Marvelous Mondays, and they really are marvelous. There's no two ways about it. And if you scan that QR code right there, it takes you to this link right here, theacademypresents.com/meetup link, where you can register and you can meet a bunch of operators, syndicators, and stuff like that. I want to say a couple things about Marvelous Mondays there, Angel?
Absolutely. We would love to have you at the Marvelous Mondays meetup. We are really a family there. We care about one another. We know one another. And if you're new, we're going to want to learn about you. We want to bring you into the family so that you can be a part of who and what we are. And hopefully we can help you grow and really contribute to the space, because we hit that point where that's what we want to do. We've made an impact. We've seen some significance. Now we want to grow and we want to contribute. So we want to keep moving forward, and joining a great meetup, joining a great mastermind. Those things are going to help you meet those needs as well when you're looking at, like, say, the 6 human needs.
I love that. And my background, I do a ton of marketing, and one of the most important things in marketing is getting your messaging straight. In other words, getting what it is that you offer that's of value, spitting it out in a way where people are like, hey, I want that, I need that. And one thing that I find is really amazing about this community is everybody does that for each other for free, which is kind of infuriating if you do that on a consultation basis. But it's fine. That is my biggest reason I can say why, regardless of what you got going on, you're going to want to hang out with our group and meet the people, these syndicators that we're hanging out. Because we really are go-getters. And the thing that I found that's amazing is it's not like we were all natural go-getters. Like some of it is very much learned behavior. So it really is infectious. I don't know. I'm getting into the weeds here, but it's one thing that drives me crazy when you're making big moves in your life, that you might have friends who are like, hey, oh, you don't hang out with us anymore, but you're trading up. And it's not just an elitist sort of thing. It's you're around happier people who are actually making changes in their life. So that's my big pitch. That was not soft at all, but yeah, it's free. So join us.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
School program. I've seen some of the apartment communities that I've invested in have a vegetable garden just for free fresh vegetables and fruits for the family. So it could be just very tiny things, but it can make such a huge impact on someone's lives.
So for someone that doesn't have as much time and they haven't devoted to being a real estate professional, they're just kind of looking at it, but they see it as a way to make an impact. They see it as a way to be a more active philanthropist, or however they see it. How could someone like that really benefit from being able to be a part of a syndication or being part of an investment?
Funny you ask, Angel, because I feel like I've been on both sides. I've done both active and passive investing. I started off as a very active investor. So I did what most people thought real estate investing was, what you see on HGTV or what you're used to buying a single family home. So I started off with single family and small multi because that's all I knew how to do.
Same.
But go ahead, Ann.
No, I'm just saying we're the same. I mean, you start in residential because you move out of your home and you keep it, becomes a rental.
And that's where your comfort is, right? You know how to buy a home. And I think that's where a lot of people start. And you just don't realize there's this whole other world out there. So I self-managed my first property and I said, never again. I handed over my portfolio to a property manager, but even then the decisions always rise to the top, right? No matter what, like you're the end game. Yeah. So it wasn't as passive as I liked it to be. And the classic example is I was playing with my daughter at the park, nice sunny day. And I was like, property manager's taking care of everything. Of course I get a text from him. It's never good to hear from your property manager because they're not going to tell you, we got you.
That's a good one to pause there too, which is that, like, I think a lot of coaches, they basically have like one strategy, and it's basically to become a coach. And like when you're a physician or a surgeon, how is that supposed to make more sense? I really do think that there are ways to make this stuff work without, being like, okay, well, I've got this, I'm already an accredited investor just from my salary or what I do in my W-2. And, like there are ways to get involved, but I just think that that's something to look out for is like, don't necessarily think that you have to quit what you're doing to get involved. So rock and roll.
2x the rent that we wanted to. But anyways, 4 of the bathrooms flooded in this duplex that we had recently renovated.
Oh.
So instead of spending that beautiful afternoon with my daughter, I was on the phone with him, texting him, just getting updates, even though he was there. So it's just a classic example how it's really not as passive. It's more passive than if you were managing it. So what I really wanted was just the time, right? So with any deal, there's 3 components, in my opinion, is time, knowledge, or money. So what do you bring to the table? And as I was getting further into my career, and especially since having my 2 daughters, I lacked the time, truthfully, and even if I had the time, I don't know if I want to be spending it searching for the properties, researching, doing all that. So that's when I discovered syndications, investing passively, and whoa, like my world changed. First, I'm able to leverage someone's time and expertise and team. Second, I'm able to invest in these like large commercial buildings. I mean, I can't imagine buying that myself, but pulling together resources, like I get all the benefits as if I was owning it, right? Like direct real estate. So that's really
Right. So her play then is that she stays as a surgeon, but she's the one with her ear to the ground getting deal flow from different sponsors she knows. So basically it shows there's multiple plays there, right? So she's depending on people in her community to get in on deals and leverage her own money and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, she's not saying like, okay, well, I guess no more eye surgery for me. I'm just going to focus on making acquisitions and talking to sellers and stuff like that. That's not what she's doing. So there's multiple plays being wrapped up in here, and I want to make sure that the audience understands that, especially if they are also. Yeah, exactly.
How I shifted to the passive side. So for anyone who is thinking about investing in real estate but doesn't necessarily want to be a landlord and deal with all that, I would highly suggest them looking into syndications and passively investing. But they're not for everyone. But
well, I would even say, like, if you're in residential and you think you're passive because you're a property manager,
yeah,
holy night. When we started doing LP investments, I was like,
this is passive, right?
You don't have any phone calls? Do they not have to have a roof replaced? Do they not have plumbing issues? Like, there's no phone calls. And then Jason's like, yeah, no, it was just a deposit. It was an ACH deposit. And it's like, what? And that was like the first time in my life that I realized that there's like this continuum of what's passive.
Absolutely.
And you can think you're passive, but you're still fielding those calls when the roof was leaking. Or what was our latest one? Oh, it was a slab leak. That's been a fun one.
Oh no.
Oh yes, the slab leak. And so that was the latest one. And then we had another one that was, it was like the living room floor was just soaked. And so that's probably another slab leak. But it's like, we have to, it's not every day.
Right.
Sometimes we go months without getting a phone call, and then it just slams. But
it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
But we thought that was passive.
Yeah.
And then you get into like a syndication passive investment, and it's literally mailbox money. Like, you just get a deposit, whether that's monthly or quarterly, however it's set up, that's what you get. You don't have to field phone calls. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything. Now, I will say, if things are getting kind of weird and going sideways, you as an LP member do have the ability to get the contact information of other LP members, and you can connect and you can vote out GP. But you need to have a replacement for that or an exit plan strategy or something.
But hopefully it won't get to that point because you vetted your sponsor really well, right, Angel?
Yeah. Well, I'm like thinking, like, from all the people that I've ever talked to, and I know people that have done, 50, 75, 100 LP deals. I've heard of probably less than 5 times that that's happened. But I just always put it out there because I think sometimes like we didn't think we could do anything to affect change. When things were going sideways in the deal, we were like, well, I guess we're just stuck. Well, thank God we didn't lose anything, but it was physical loss. Like we didn't actually lose cash, but we lost time value of money. We lost time. So there was a cost there, but we didn't know that we had any action, that we didn't know there was any kind of recourse for us. And so I just always put it out there in case somebody's in the same place I was, because I mean, if it's something I can share, I want to share it. But yeah, no, you should be vetting your sponsorship team. And if you're getting started and you're embarrassed to recon the team, don't be embarrassed.
Mhm.
Just don't be, because like if you've hung out amongst any experienced syndicators, you hear them vetting one another, you hear them vetting deals, and it just takes the embarrassment away. You realize that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And by not doing it, you're setting yourself up for potential failure. And that's never a good thing.
So I think what you're saying there is you have to be prepared to have unpleasant conversations, and that it's rarely as unpleasant as you probably imagine it's going to be. Is that fair enough synopsis?
Well, and I think it comes back to when we were just getting started, we didn't want people to know we were brand new. So we pretended, it's not so much we pretended, but it was like we thought that to be in the space and look experienced, you needed to appear knowledgeable, so knowledgeable that you can just make things happen. You can just take those leaps. You can just invest in things. When the reality of the situation is the more experienced you are, the more likely you are to talk to people, because the more connections you'll have also. But it's not something to be embarrassed about. You should 100% be vetting those sponsorship teams, getting to know them. If you can't make a phone call to them, you might want to find somebody that'll give you their number. Or that's how I feel. I mean, maybe that's not what everybody else is looking for, but that's what I'm looking for.
And like that's one of the things too. It like one thing that I think it makes me pretty unpopular in this community is that the fund model is something that I'm not crazy about, just because at the end of the day you own part of a fund. Whereas like if you actually work with a syndicator, then you actually have part of the building, and that's what you were describing about, like if there's an LP problem, if there's really it's a GP problem, the LPs can have that recourse and say, okay, well we can take over the building rather than force a sale and take a big haircut. Like I think that's a really positive thing, and it really comes to vetting those sponsors, as you were saying. And I see Jason, he's come back. I'm going to add him to the stream here. Hopefully it's a good time to do that, but let's continue.
Yeah, real estate success depends on a couple of things to fall into place, right? You have to buy at the right price, buy in the right location, and have the right team execute on the right business plan. So there's so many moving pieces that if you get any of them wrong, it could really go south. So that's why I feel like most people, especially like busy professionals like myself, doctors, lawyers, etc., they just don't have the time, energy, or desire to gain all the knowledge, research the market, build those relationships, and execute on the whole business plan to win in this game called real estate. So for myself, for instance, I really have to think long and hard about how I want to spend my time and what is my time worth, and whether, even if I have that time, whether I want to spend it building an active real estate business. And that's one thing I would challenge the audience to think about, is this fundamental questions. Do you want to invest in real estate, meaning be an investor, or do you actually want to build an active real estate investing business? Because those are two very different skills.
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between like creating several streams of income and creating your next job.
Exactly.
And I think that there's a lot of, it's kind of like a misnomer. You think, oh, I'm working for myself, this won't be a job, but at the end of the day, it is. We do have a little bit of a different business model in our heads, but that's.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to go in a different direction here. But since you mentioned mailbox money before, usually that's talking about triple net properties, like like a little property with like a Starbucks or something like that on it. A national credit tenant, and the idea being is that it's already leased out for 10 years, 15 years, something like that. You don't have to take care of the building whatsoever. That's one play, but obviously anybody who's networked, like they'll they'll get all the good ones, and all that's left are ones with pretty skinny returns. But the main thing about that play is to avoid just opening like a McDonald's or that kind of franchise, because then you 100% are buying yourself a job, and it's not even a great job, which makes no sense at all to me. I just love, throwing that one out there.
Yeah. Well, even being a syndicator is a job.
Hmm.
But if you are a passive investor, I don't care what you're passively investing in. If it's a commercial deal, you are receiving mailbox money, whether that's a self-storage deal, or it's an ATM index, or whether it is multi-use or triple net, or whatever it is. If you're getting distributions that you're really not having to do much for, that's mailbox money. So it's and I think it's funny, in residential you think, oh yeah, I'm getting mailbox money. You're probably not. Even if you have a property
No.
manager, you're probably not just getting mailbox money, because you're having to field a lot of those calls. Because like in syndication, when we meet on our weekly meetings, or we meet on our biweekly meetings, we're making decisions for the property. And so residential is similar. It just may not be happening on a weekly or biweekly basis. Because like I said here, we may go months with no phone calls and then get slammed with 10 phone calls. So it's still being taken care of in a very similar fashion to what we're doing in multifamily on the GP side. It's just more involved. There's more players, because there's more roles that need to be filled, discussed, and taken care of.
Beautiful, beautiful. And because we're after Q2, it's time once again for me to put triangles on my face. And this time I've got some snazzy fashion that I got on here too. Actually, I think I can make myself even bigger if I do this. No, it covers up too much. No, up there. Boom. Holy, look at those lovely jerseys with Jason's photo, with the bow tie and everything. But you may be asking, is there more room in your underwriting? And we're not afraid of people seeing our underwriter around here. But if you scan this code right here, or go to theacademypresents.com/UW, you'll see the different offerings that Jason has as far as helping with your underwriting, everywhere from a look through of what you've already put together, and that does not use his proprietary modeling. But he also has packages where he puts your numbers through the ringers, goes through the T12 and the rent roll and all that kind of fun stuff, making a few assumptions for you, saying, hey, if you do this with your business plan, that's what you're looking at. If you do that, then here's the other thing. Angel, do you have anything you want to add about the second set of eyes?
Well, I love seeing my husband's face on a shirt, so I'm a little enamored at the moment. But I did finally get mine that says, your underwriter is showing. We're not going to talk about the size I had to get, because they were made like super small, or maybe, anyway, we're not going to go there. But you want to have your swag, because you want to be involved with something like this. You want to be involved in the vision and the why, and we just want you to be part of our family, and that's it.
Awesome. So we are reviewing this section with Dr. Nancy, who is an eye surgeon and ophthalmologist, by the sounds of it too. So let's go.
Because we did come from residential. We're still in residential. We've been here for 20 years. We both grew up in families invested in residential real estate. So when we see that single family home, we think, hey, that's a great store of value. And so those become ways for us to kind of bank our money, but in a way that it's going to move with the market. So that's why we consider it a store of value.
I just got to pause it, because store of value is such an important term. Okay, like our society's financial systems for like thousands of years have been off of gold, things like that, as a store of value. Some people have pointed out that 2,000 years ago, an ounce of gold would have basically got you the equivalent of a nice suit and a nice meal or something like that, and that's still true right now, thousands of years later. But I like the difference, though, is that if you own gold, you don't get paid for owning it, whereas real estate you do, and it also keeps up with inflation, unless you're making some guesses that don't pan out. But store of value is such an important concept, and if I didn't pause it, I'd feel like I wasn't emphasizing it enough. So, rock and roll.
Because it kind of maintains. And so it's a really safe place for us to store cash. And then if we want to make a big purchase, we can just do a cash out refi or something like that and move forward into something else. But the neat thing about getting into syndication was the ability to like scale and build wealth. And that's different from having money in the bank. So it's the wealth building ability that you get from the scale that unparalleled. Unparalleled. Like I wouldn't say get into it thinking cash flow, but if you want something where you're going to potentially double what you put into it every 5-7 years, yeah, I don't know of anything else out there that will consistently perform that way.
And then you kind of have to consider what are your goals, right? We're talking about investment goals now, because before you even jump into a syndication or looking at sponsors, it's like, what do you want? Because someone in their 70s, for instance, who's already at retirement, they might not have that risk tolerance of what you're talking about, Angel, of like, oh, I want to 2x, 3x my money. They just want a steady cash flow. They just want that 9-10% return that they get, or maybe 8 now in these days. But for someone in their 20s or 30s, right, where they're like, whatever, I have what, decades and decades to build wealth, and I could double, triple my money many times over. They're going to take a higher risk with the projects and the real estate that they invest in. So it always just starts with, what do you want, right? What do you want? Do you want cash flow? Do you want equity? That'll dictate what you invest in and who you invest with. So all starts there.
Oh, and I even heard something that takes it deeper than that. Like, why do you want more money? You just want more money? Well, what does that do?
Yeah.
Do you want financial freedom? Do you want to be able to cover your expenses? What do you want from the investment? And then you kind of start reverse engineering it, right? So how am I going to make that happen? And I never even thought about people choosing the class of property based on where they are in life. But I have a friend that he's like, if the numbers are great on a class C, maybe, but I'm really, at this point in my life, I'm a B or an A, because they don't want to have to deal with the problems that come with a deep value add property.
Makes sense. And that's why it's different for everyone, and just to kind of point out what you said, I think it starts with whatever you're doing, whether investing or whatever goals you have in life, is what do you want and why you want it? And those are really the two fundamental questions you need to ask yourself. And that's really helped me in my investing journey, and, my journey as a doctor, as a mom, as a wife, all these roles, like, what do I want and why do I want it? Right. Those are two fundamental questions that you ask every time you're going after a goal or whatever you pursue.
Yeah, no, and it also comes back to like, how are you meeting your 6 human needs, right? So the 6 basic needs. And the reason why I bring them up, I'm actually pulling them up because I want to make sure I don't say anything incorrectly, but you reach a point where you're worried about the contribution you're making, and you're worried about the impact you're making and how much you're growing. And that's kind of like after you've covered the other 4. So I think of it kind of like Maslow's, right? You got to cover your food, your shelter, and your clothing. And once you've covered those things, you get the ability to grow further. And that's when you're looking for, significance, and you're looking for, the connections and the love and then the growth and making an impact on all of these things. And I think back to when I was teaching middle school, and sometimes my students couldn't focus because they hadn't eaten breakfast.
Yeah.
Or maybe their pants were too thin and it was cold in my classroom. And so I think about how being a part of real estate investing, whether active or passive, you get to not only make sure that your family's need are being met, but every single family that lives in the property you've bought, you get to make sure that you are providing the best place for them to be housed at that particular price point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah,
100%. I mean, these are people's lives. Like, as you were mentioning about your experience as a teacher with the clothes and the food, it got me to thinking, because my older daughter just started kindergarten. And so she told me to stop packing lunch for her after 2 days, because apparently I'm not a very good cook, maybe, and she likes school lunch. But one of the things we told her is like, we upload money on this card for her. So she swipes it every day or puts a number and they deduct it. And one of the things that my husband and I told her was, hey, like, if you find that someone doesn't have food or it just seems like their lunch is very sparse, like, just invite them and just swipe your card for them. So just teaching them those skills, like, you could help someone no matter how young you are, because not everyone is as fortunate, as we are, that we just readily have food on our table. Yeah. So
yeah, well, and like, if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, well, great, this person came from money, or they had some kind of a windfall and they were able to get involved in this. Jason and I's first house was like $55,000, which you're probably thinking 55, holy night, but we bought it in 03, which means that we put very little down. And we were floating 2 loans on that bad boy. So we had like the 80% loan, and then we had like another 15%, or maybe even more than that loan. And we did not have a first-time homebuyer loan. We had a traditional loan. So this was before all of the stuff came crashing down. But you can still get into a property with low to no down payment. There are tons of programs out there, and you just have to find a realtor that is well-versed in what those programs are. There's hero programs. There's the hero one is the one I'm most familiar with, but that's for like first responders and teachers, and that helps you get.
As far as the timing goes, this was fall of this year, so like that's still the case as far as you know.
Yeah, there are still programs out there that will help you get into a first property, and then if you're in the military, you want to be hooking up with somebody that is knowledgeable of how to use those VA loans, because I think I'm not familiar. I'm not in the military, but from the friends that I have talked to, people in the military that are, like, help you get the VA loans and stuff, they don't know what you can do with them. So you want to hook up with somebody like David Perret with Military to Millionaire, or you want to hook up with ADPI, Active Duty Passive Income, or Brian Briscoe with his group Tribe of Titans, because they're going to know and be more knowledgeable about how you could use that VA loan. If you're wanting to do the hero grants, or you're wanting to do first time home buyers, you're going to want to use realtors that are familiar with those programs. And there is always going to be something out there that's going to help you get into a home, because for the IRS, people that own real estate, the reason why we get the benefits we do is because we are providing a service to others. We are providing a home to others. We are providing residences. We are providing. That is why we get the tax benefits we do. It's not because we're finding loopholes and jacking the system around. It's because the government supports what we are doing and they want us to do more of it.
Yeah, they're outsourcing to landlords. You know, it's they're supposed to take care of the land of the people, and they're not in the business of real estate. So they basically make sure that there's plenty of people and plenty of opportunity. So good stuff.
Get into that house, because it's just getting the first one. Once you've got the first one and that can become your first rental, then you can start moving forward. And there's ups and downs. Don't flake out because you have a bad first renter. We had a bad first renter. It sucked. But we've been in it for a while with our families, and we just knew there were ups and downs. And there's ups and downs in residential. There's ups and downs in commercial.
There's ups and downs in everything, in real estate and in life. So it's just how you respond to it, and your reaction to it and your thoughts around it. That's going to determine your actions and ultimately your outcome. So there's always going to be situations that we don't like or don't go expected, but that's part of life, and it's how we react to it and how we deal with it that will dictate the outcome and ultimately our feelings in response to it. So
yeah, and I would also just kind of put it out there that if you've got children, get them involved. Our girls know that we have properties. We'll drive by them. We get to see them, and that's one of the benefits, I think, of having everything pretty close to us. They've gone out to the apartments and swam. Like, I coach them. I'm like, so if somebody comes up to you and says, where do you live? You just say, my parents know the owners. And we got permission, because I don't want it to be weird on them, because people get kind of territorial sometimes. But I just want them to be able to be a part of it and get to benefit from it and see how it goes. And once we start doing more events, I want my family to be there, because I think that sometimes people who do have apartments, people who are residing in apartments, they forget that it's just average people that own them. And just to kind of reconnect the humanity of, we're normal people, we're average people.
Yeah.
And just bring some of that back, because I think that really, I think people want to help people. And if we all can come back to the realization that we're all people, that it's just going to be better for everyone as a whole.
Absolutely. We're all about connection, right? And community. We crave that as humans. So I totally agree. Before I started investing in apartments, I used to think that they were just owned by these huge companies, Wall Street. I didn't think someone like myself could own a piece of it. And then I just wanted to really emphasize the point that you mentioned, is involving the children in it. I started to do that with all my residential stuff. My portfolio, active stuff, is in my backyard in Atlanta. So I actually have given each of my girls a duplex here, so they know that they quote unquote own that. So as they get older, I'm starting to show my 5-year-old profit and loss statements from each month. But I think it's just a wonderful way to teach children about finances, about running a business, about the power of real estate, and just navigating life and people in general. I think it's just a wonderful life lesson that real estate can teach. So I 100% agree with you on that, Angel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that even, it doesn't have to be children. Like, if you are an adult and maybe you don't really understand personal finance, like, you could still learn it in real estate. You're going to need to find a really good mentor that can help you understand it. But just like she said, she goes through that profit and loss with her daughter. Like, I am not our underwriter. That is not my strength. And Jason and I, he was going through the underwriting with me. We were getting ready for this, and there's so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's nothing embarrassing or wrong about saying you don't know. And I asked some pretty, I don't even know how to say it. Like, at one point I was like, oh, is that metric? Because it was the word like centie and milli. It wasn't, it was like percent and per mil. So
I've asked my share of, I never say dumb questions, but I don't think any question's ever dumb, but of very elementary questions. And if you don't ask, you don't know. And I'm sure there's probably like 10 other people in the room, if you are in a room, that's thinking the same thing.
And they
so
just don't have
up. Yeah. If you speak up, you're going to help everyone else too. So yeah, it's in the power of the questions and knowing what you don't know and having the courage to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And someone will have the answer for you usually.
Yeah, usually. And I put myself out there just to say that it's okay to not know. I mean, Jason and I have been doing this since we bought our first house in 2003. And then we literally both grew up in families that were investing in residential real estate. So, I'm 45, Jason's younger than me, but we've got 35 solid years doing this stuff. And I I'm not even going to pretend like I know even 20% of what's going on. There's so much to it. And you're always going to want to have a team around you that can help you do the pieces that you either don't like or don't want to learn, because things for me fall in, I love it, or I don't like it and I don't want to learn it. So those are kind of my buckets. And it's really nice to have a team that can cover what you don't like and you don't want to learn.
And I think that applies to real estate and in life, right? There's some things that you're just like, I don't even want to go there. And that's okay. I have someone, is that concept of who, not how, that Dan Sullivan's book, just find the who can help you with that. And you're going to go much faster that way. But if you want to learn the stuff that are important, there is someone who's going to be willing to help you. And I think, a huge barrier of why people don't get into it is they just don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know it's even an option for them. Like I certainly didn't until I went down this rabbit hole. So I feel like a lot of people don't invest in real estate because they don't even know that it's there for them, that it's an option for them, that owning an apartment is even a possibility for them. So yeah, I think that's a huge barrier to why people don't even get into it, because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would say like the first house that we got, it was bought. I don't really know much about it. The second one, I was way more involved. The third one, the fourth one, way more involved. We've bought 5 now, and Jason and Julianne were in another state, no cell phone access, no internet access. And I was like, I felt totally out of control with everything that was going on with our multifamily, but I was like, if a single family were to fall in my lap right now today for a good price, I would just go buy it.
Yeah.
And that came from just doing it over and over again. And I haven't done it a ton of times. I've done it like 4, but I feel secure enough in the people that we've surrounded ourselves with that if it fell in my lap, I was going to do it, because dang it, that was one thing I could control.
Well, with any skill, if you think about it, it takes both time and repetition. I'm thinking to even the eye surgeries I do. The first time I did it, I was scared out of my pants. I was shaking, my hands were shaking. I was like, I am going to blind this person. But now it's taken years and the repetition of many cases that I feel so comfortable. And it's the same thing with real estate, anything you do, that it just takes time. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. It's like flexing a muscle. The more you exercise that muscle, it's going to get stronger and stronger, and you'll have less fear in doing it. Not to say that fear goes away completely, because I don't think it ever does, right? You just kind of set a new goal and stretch yourself, and then that fear will always be there.
Wow. So that just like hit me like a totally different way, because you're like, the first surgery I was shaking. And I think about like some of the things that my son has had to go through, and then knowing that my husband, his vision is very poor, and potentially getting some kind of a surgery to help him see better. And man, you don't always think about the risk that is being spread apart on both parties, because there's risk for both. And I'm like thinking like, how, in what all ways does that apply? Because there's risk in investing, but there's risk on both parts. There's risk of putting your money in it. There's risk of not executing on the property. There's risks that you're gonna have to re-tenant your whole resident base. I mean, there's risks that are spread everywhere, and I think that we focus on one over the other too often.
It's just calculated risk though, right, Angel?
I heard a great story on that from somebody who's not us, which is the best kind of story. And he was saying that he took a flyer on a third-party operator, and they went ahead and bumped rents by 15% across the board, and that caused a mass exodus. And basically like 4 months of completely restabilizing the property. It's just another example of how things can go like totally wrong, even though you made no mistakes at all. I thought that was a great little story there.
If you think about it, like for instance, just applying my medical background, like I wouldn't recommend a treatment to someone if I didn't think there was at least a better chance of success of not doing anything. And it's the same thing with investing. I wouldn't invest if I think not investing would be better. So it's always a calculated risk. Will the risk always be there? Yes. But what is the cost of inaction? In terms of like eye surgery, is it going to make a patient blind? In terms of investing, like, are you going to start losing money without investing? Don't just jump in, but once you kind of weigh the pros and the cons, make a decision about whether that is the right choice for you.
Now I'm just so glad you're here today, because you got me thinking. Now I'm like all in my head, like, wow. But that's not one of the benefits of coming to things like this, and just being around people that are, well, not being the smartest person in the room is a very, very smart thing to be.
You never want to be the smartest person in the room.
I'm just like sitting here amazed, like thinking of things that I would have never connected. And so it's just really neat to be in these situations. And so, I just want to thank you for being here and being a part of this and sharing some of your experiences and knowledge with everybody out there, because this is how we learn and this is how we grow and support one another.
Thank you for having me, Angel. It was so fun talking to you.
Oh, absolutely. And guys, there is a ton over here, but if you really want to be able to interact, you got to upgrade and come and join us on the live side. That said, there is a ton of stuff over here. So if this is where you want to be, I get it, but I do wish you'd come and join us over on the live side. So until we see each other again.
Yeah, that offer's not live anymore, so let me just
now if you want to go back and see that stuff, you're gonna have to get your subscription, and the subscription is not overwhelming. It is an amazing price, and that's what you want to do. What you looking for, Dan?
I was looking for the tab that was still playing for me, but not for the audience. And yeah, because it had this little trap, thing for VIP upgrade during the live summit. So that was really
Oh, the drum.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's what I was searching for. But I just love these sorts of subjects, and I love the caveats, the little sidebars that came in, because obviously it's really important for everybody to be financially literate. And like I was about to pause it near the end when she was saying like, okay, well, but what's the loss due to not investing? Because that's the one that like that gets me really animated, because that's inflation, full stop. Inflation right now is costing people way more money than they even realize. They notice that they buy a pound of butter and it's more expensive this year than last year and the year before, but they don't realize that that's eating away at that nest egg that they're holding liquid. If you're holding a wad of cash in your bank account, you're losing at least 7% to inflation every single year. So, like if you have something that keeps up with inflation, you deploy $100, then you should have, between 100 and 107 worth of value. And of course, like to recognize that you probably have like some expenses or whatever, but you're only going to be able to buy like $93 worth of stuff in a year due to inflation. So,
Yeah, and
I don't think anybody has a choice.
even when people aren't talking about inflation, there's still inflation. You may have heard about
Mhm.
like the 3% loss per year on the dollar. That's the average. So while it's
Mhm.
insane right now, even though people are saying the numbers are less, yeah, I rolled my eyes. It's, I believe it's higher than what's being stated. And even when we're not thinking about inflation, so in the next few years, when we're no longer remembering how insane it was in, this time period, there's still going to be some loss to the value each and every year. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, it is covering that loss of the year, at least remaining even. But if you are
Mhm.
trying to realize your whys and attain those steps and become that contributor and grow and contribute, you've got to figure out some ways to make your money work for you in methods that get you above and beyond where you currently are now.
And like the way that I was raised, my community, all that kind of stuff, we were always had an attitude of like, well, if times are tough, and it's annual review time, considering raises and all that kind of stuff. If things aren't going so well, then you should really do your boss a favor and not request a raise. But the fact is, especially in an industry that's linked to finances the way that real estate is, you really become aware that if you do not get a raise every year, they are paying you less this year for the exact same service as the year before. So if you've been improving your skills, if you've been improving your productivity, if you're doing a better job, you really should be asking for a raise. And that's not a nice thought for me and like the people who I've surrounded myself with, but I think it's so important to realize. But normally we have the doggy bag takeaways for all of this. We had a chance to talk about our whys, which is I think is really really fantastic. But any other things you want to add to the doggy bag before we call it a day?
I will. At one point, Dr. Nancy talked about how it could be small whys or big whys. And there are times in my life where our why seems so huge that it's hard for me to break it down and make it relevant in the moment. So I would take the time to, yes, have your big huge why, have that big hairy audacious goal, but at the same time break it up a little bit, have some intermediary whys and intermediary goals, because when you're having a hard time in the moment, when you don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. one morning, it's really hard to remember, oh, I want to have a foundation for people with rare diseases. I'm telling you, honey, that's not going to get me up in the morning. What's going to get me up in the morning is knowing that today I get the chance to make a difference in somebody's life. I get to help somebody get closer to attaining their why, to discovering their why, to moving forward. That is something that will make me get up. But thinking about what our ultimate goals are, that's really hard to make relevant in the moment sometimes. So if you're discovering that and you're finding that, don't get discouraged, but think about what are the intermediary whys, what are the intermediary steps that are going to get you to that ultimate goal.
I love that. And I'm jotting down my idea here so I don't lose it because it's a little bit roundabout. And, I've been a business consultant because of CRMs since 2010. And so back then, like I was like a fresh 30-year-old, I guess. And it was kind of a weird situation to be turning around to people who are, getting 7 figures or more in revenue. They've got their online business. And I'm sitting there telling them what they need to be doing and, their accredited investors and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't have a term for it when I started doing it, but now they absolutely do. And it has to do with the QR code that I brought up on here, which is for our there's an interview to process and make sure you're a good fit. But this is for the mastermind that we're opening up. And that's only a couple weeks away because we're looking to start in January. But the word for what I found people really needed from young people who, hadn't seen it all or whatever, it's accountability partners. Having people who will hold you to your big, hairy, audacious goals, it's it's such an enormous part about keeping going because like that's the part of being human. We're a bundle of nerves and we forget things sometimes. We forget our why, even though like we feel like we're walking with our why all the time. So the mastermind that we're putting on, that's what you're looking to get out of it. We've got a group of people who are actually killing it right now, and they want to make sure that you call them on their BS if they're saying, oh well, I was gonna do this, but there's this, that, and the other thing. You'll have people who will turn around and say, no, you said that 2 months ago and you said that 3 months ago. Like now it's just excuses. So, get on board, do what you're supposed to. Angel, what are your thoughts when it comes to the mastermind and why that's an interesting proposal for people?
So one of the things that we've seen from several people is that they want to be part of a mastermind where everyone's going to participate. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal to me as well. That's one of the reasons why we have a fairly strenuous like questionnaire and then the interview process also, because we want to make sure that you are fully committed, that you are committed to playing all out and being 100% there every single time that we are meeting, because we can't grow to our full potentials. And I'm not talking about me and Jason. I'm talking about we as a group cannot grow to our full potentials if we are not 100% committed to what we're involving ourselves with. And so that requires that if this is something you're looking at, if you're looking to grow and you're looking to really springboard your just productivity and passion and getting closer and closer to your why and being to help those around you get closer and closer to their whys, then this is something for you, because we're not messing around here. We're going all in, we're going all out, and we're going to be hitting massive major goals together, and I am super excited about it. So find out how to get that questionnaire, find out how to get an interview with us, and we would love for you to join us.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And we definitely have people keeping us honest, keeping us active, all that kind of stuff. But as you can see, we do have introverts involved here, which you can see by the fact that Jason is not appearing in his exactly, like he's such an introvert, he won't even come on camera. But this, so even though we're serious about this, it's an introvert friendly environment. We understand the desire to just sit there and be quiet and just take it all in and keep yourself company with your own thoughts. So we can still do that and achieve all the goals of a mastermind. So it's really exciting. All you have to do is scan this code with your phone, and it'll send you straight to the page there. Otherwise, Angel and I are always on LinkedIn. What's going on, Angel?
I added new availability for today, tomorrow, and Sunday for additional interviews, because we're searching for a pretty specific group of people to put together. So it's not for everybody, and I really think that you should be thankful for that. That it's not just oh hey, come join this and pay us and you'll be in a mastermind. It's really that we're looking for people that are looking for that accountability. They're looking for a strong mastermind that they are going to be growing from, and that not that they're forced to participate in, but that they get to participate in. They get to be a part of that team that is about to absolutely skyrocket where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful stuff. So LinkedIn is a great way to get a hold of us as well. I got the distinctive last name, it makes it pretty easy. But other than that, this has been the REI Rocks review, where we go through the vault of summit recordings and we review them at 1.5 times speed. And that way you get to see how to consume pre-recorded information in a way that makes much better use of your time. But we also make sure that it's timely and poignant, because we can pause it and say, hey, but how about that Fed rate increase, or whatever's most recent, what's going on. I really appreciate you guys joining today. What's that, Angel?
So whatever's burning at that moment.
Exactly. So thank you very much for joining me. Angel, I really enjoy these. You're the best host a guy could ask for. Jason has a little bit more to be desired. Like, his presence is usually better.
Well, actually, so
and I'm just
well, he's actually walking investors through personally right now on how to get through the portal and get things signed up. So that's part of that being a part of our family. We're going to take those extra steps and white glove it with you.
Exactly. So exactly. That's been great fun. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be here again next week, next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We're streaming on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Make sure you hit subscribe and like and stuff. So, because it'd be really awesome if YouTube started paying for all this stuff. I think that'd be amazing.
Right?
But exactly. So have a lovely weekend. Thanks for joining.